have a new United Nations General Secretary that is going to be absolutely horrific when it comes to the immigration question. He recently actually stated that European migration, or the wave that we've seen of migrants into Europe, is unstoppable. They're trying to act that this is some kind of organic movements of people, and it's just nothing we can do about it, when this couldn't be further from the truth. These people are actually actively trying to bring in as many people as they possibly can. And of course, it doesn't help that guys like this have a stance on the fact that this is also the moral imperative of white Europeans to adhere to, that, you know, migration, as he said, is not the problem, but it's the solution. That's actually what he said. You know,
solution
publicly.
to what?
Solution to the white problem, right?
Yeah,
the final solution. Check out this promo video. This is out of a recent. There's a couple of videos that he did, interviews when he ascended to the throne of becoming the new UN boss, if you will. So check this out. See what his stance on these kinds of questions really are.
The next Secretary General.
We badly need at this moment two things: leadership and values. The values that our societies, that are all becoming multi-ethnic, multi-religious and multicultural, need in order to foster inclusion, cohesion, to make people feel they belong, to value diversity, and to confront and defeat political populism, xenophobia, racism, and violent extremism. And I believe those values are the values I've served in all my life. We are seeing the problems of inequality and lack of inclusivity in development in many parts of the world. So to prevent with an holistic approach, which means to address the three pillars of the UN activity from a prevention perspective, is clearly my personal priority. Globalization is asymmetric. Money moves freely, goods and services move more or less freely, but for people, there are all obstacles for people to move. And this is something that creates a lot of inequalities in the world. So I believe that in relation to migration, what it is important is, first, to create as much as possible opportunities for legal migration as a way to see human rights respected and as a way to fight the role of smugglers and traffickers, and simultaneously to have development cooperation policies also taking into account human mobility, to make migration an option, not an act of despair. I have long been aware of the hurdles women face in society, in the family, and in the workplace, just because of their gender. I believe that diversity in all its forms is a tremendous asset, not a threat. And that in societies that are more and more multi-ethnic, multicultural, and multi-religious, diversity can bring us together, not drive us apart. We must make sure that we are able to break this alliance between all those terrorist groups or violent extremists on one side and the expressions of populism and xenophobia on the other side. These two reinforce each other, and we must be able to fight both of them with determination. Excellence.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the dream of the founders of the United Nations remains unfulfilled. Much has been achieved. We must embark on this road together, we the peoples, in our various functions, because the goal is within reach, the well-being of humanity. I thank you.
The well-being of humanity. Yeah, this guy's amazing.
Just another
Antonio Guterres.
anti-white globalist.
Yeah, it's amazing. These ivory tower globalists, you know, and it's like they literally think that somehow just opening the borders, letting all these people in, are going to create peace, right? But on one hand, he recognizes, he said that in his UN speech, that, well, you know, when we have terrorism, that just basically enforces, they're not afraid of the terrorism.
No.
They're just afraid of the fact that there will be a counter reaction by these evil right-wingers on one end.
Yeah. And he makes clear, too, that the UN, one of their main pillars is flooding white nations, ending white nations. I mean, diversity in white countries is not going the other way around. And then he brings up about, goods are free to move, so why can't people?
Yeah,
it's
the same thing.
People
right?
are not inanimate objects.
It's just a pallet of dead flesh.
I mean, seriously.
Amazing, isn't it?
I mean, they're in total denial of the chaos in Europe, how Europe is worse after mass immigration.
Well, that's why I say ivory tower globalists. They're never in touch with actually, I mean, he's been on the ground in some of these countries, but it's like, just because he goes to like Sierra Leone or like, Ethiopia or something.
Kisses
and
a kid for the cameras.
See all these people there and oh my God, we got to do something. It was like the solution is not to bring them to Europe or America or other Western countries. The solution is simply to help them on where they are at. It's not difficult.
Just let them help themselves. And then he's saying, populism, we must stop populism. Well, populist movements, isn't that the majority? Isn't that what the majority wants then? So we have to stop the majority.
He's acting like socialism has not been a populist movement. Like that was for it literally means populist. That's the people, you know? But the fact is, though, I mean, one thing you have to be aware of with this gentleman is that he was actually the president of Socialist International until 2005. Until he was elected as the UN High Commission for Refugees. So he basically goes out of one socialist, communist branch of government straight into another, the UN in this case. And then following that, he's proposed by George Papandreou, who was the vice president of Socialist International, to become, head of it or whatever. And then later now he's become the head of the United Nations. So this is the world that these people come out of. Socialist International is literally, I don't think you can get more of a globalist organization than that, to be honest.
No, so now that he wants world socialism, where basically whites have to pay for everyone. Isn't that what's happening? I mean, isn't that what's happening? Whites are paying for all these people in Europe, right? And in America and Australia. So. Yeah,
of course. Well, this is an interesting segue actually over to the Socialist International angle and what really that is and what that has developed into in the world that we live today. Because world liberalism, this new liberal world order, as some of these globalists have tried to, or have started to express it as, this vision that they have of the world, which is no borders, blended humanity, and no tribal or national affiliations anymore. This one comes out of it's called a third way politics, right? It's the merger of the capitalist system with it's using capitalist free markets to implement a socialist agenda. And it was no more people that was more experts in bringing this in than Bill Clinton, Tony Blair in the UK. I mean, and he was caught red-handed after he was, I don't know if this was after he stepped down or after he was, not someone else was elected, but he basically admitted in one of his books that all these immigrants that he brought in was solely to like punish, the white Anglo-Saxons in Britain, and with an attempt to try to, make sure that it's becomes a non-white country. So I wanted to show you guys a clip that is kind of just an introduction to third way politics that Bill Clinton held together with one of the Democratic leadership conference. And they break this down a little bit. And it's actually an Italian guy who's also part of international socialism or the Socialist International, who basically slips up at the end and exposes it for what it really is. And Bill Clinton turns and says to him like, oh, well, if I knew that you would be this vocal, I basically wouldn't have allowed you to come. If I was running for president again, I wouldn't have allowed you to come because you're too honest. We don't use these kinds of terms anymore. So check this out, folks.
I'm Al Fromm, president of the Democratic Leadership Council. Third way, progressive governance for the 21st century. We are honored today by the presence of so many international leaders of the third way. The Democratic Leadership Council is an idea action center dedicated to developing third way philosophy and a third way governing agenda. We were first visited by a member of the shadow cabinet, Tony Blair, who was beginning his efforts to modernize the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. I want to recognize the one American who has done more to get this conversation underway than any other, the First Lady of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Yeah, look at that. So that's look at that. That's so. Let me pause there for a second. That's so interesting because that means if she would have gotten in as president of the U.S., she would basically have fulfilled this aspiration and this dream of this third way politics, which is literally socialist international. But let's watch the rest here.
Its purpose is to highlight the common values and priorities that motivate third way leaders as they seek to strike a new balance between the imperatives of economic dynamism and social justice. The third way philosophy can be summarized this way. Its first principle and enduring purpose is equal opportunity for all, special privilege for none. Its public ethic is mutual responsibility. Its core value is community. Its outlook is global, and its modern means are fostering private sector economic growth, today's prerequisite for opportunity for all, and promoting an empowering government that equips citizens with the tools they need to get ahead.
Sounds great.
What gives rise to this kind of politics? When the old order is destroyed, or when the realities of daily life or popular dreams can no longer be accommodated by a given set of political arrangements or a political debate.
Slick Willie, the rapist.
We see that in southeastern Europe today with the crisis of Kosovo, where the old choice is between state stability and being consumed by ethnic hatreds. And what we're arguing for is a new integration based on the embrace of difference.
There, listen to that. That's amazing, isn't it?
What they're pushing today.
Exactly. That's just it. I mean, this
Only
is
in our
back
countries.
I forgot to mention this. This is obviously back in, I think it's like 1992 or something like that. So, I mean, over 20 years ago. So it's based on a new idea of integration. And keep in mind, too, Bill Clinton was the one who he basically helped to bomb the Christian Serbs in Europe to smithereens while supporting the Muslims coming in. It was basically the first kind of experiment of how we can get this done, you know? And then oh my God, it's ethnic hatred. It's like, yeah, you think you're egging on the problem, you know? So a little bit more of this one here.
Not the oppression of it.
This movement is a movement that, for example, has promoted a very beautiful conference of mayors. Mayors belonging to the Socialist International from all over the world. We hosted it in Italy, of local authorities. And we had a beautiful discussion among local authorities from mayors from Latin America, from Europe, from many continents. Now, I wonder, shouldn't we create a form of communication with this extraordinary experiences, with these extraordinary experiences you're telling us about? Find direct form of communications between the experience we four belong to, the movement we four belong to, and your great experience. There's a big problem here that would have to be discussed elsewhere. It concerns the words we use.
Check this
There
out.
are words that in your civilization, in your history, sound difficult to understand or to accept. For example, we belong to the Socialist International, and I'm aware that this word is somewhat sensitive here.
Gee, I wonder why.
And I can see
He's
that we
spilling the
have
beans here,
avoided
you know?
pronouncing this word here, but we should prevail over this fear of words. Because when we move from the words to the actual facts and the actual experiences, we discover that these experiences are much closer and more similar than they're expected to be. And we should find a form of communication among these experiences who would make us all richer. That's all I had to say.
Non-PC leftist is basically, let's just call it socialism because that's what it is. That's what he's saying.
And make us all
and then
richer.
listen to Bill
right?
now response to this.
Yes, I'm not sure I would even have you here, Massimo, if I were running for re-election.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you a serious story.
Anyway, yeah, that's it. It's amazing to me that they.
Well, it is
they get away
interesting
with
though
it.
too. Just thinking in terms of all the mega capitalists in America, we've seen this kind of in Sweden too. They all talk like this, right? They all support open borders, multiculturalism. They want more mindless consumers, right? So when he said, "Oh, we'll all get richer," I mean, he's got to be meaning financially, obviously,
Well,
because they don't
too,
actually
yeah.
believe that diversity makes us rich. You know, I mean, come on.
Well, no, I mean that's the words they use for us to be able to buy their lie. But yeah, I think it's interesting that that's what we've seen in the last few years with immigration and all this stuff. It's nothing new. It's not an accident. It's nothing shocking. This is the agenda.
It's manufactured.
This
it's artificial.
is the agenda. bring in these people, solve the issue of ethnic, what they see ethnic division. But the fact is, they are the ones who are egging on ethnic division. They're the ones who are creating this situation, basically.
There was unity in our nations. There was peace in our nations before this. And then, of course, it's a lie. They say, oh, special privilege for none, right? Equal opportunity. I mean, it's just all garbage. They just use these words to sound fluffy.
Special privilege. I mean, that's what immigrants, as I just detailed, is they get ahead of the queue when they come to Sweden, and they get an apartment.
They don't pay for anything?
No, they can wait for 2-3 years in line, even more in some cases, to get an apartment, while these people come in and just get it on a whim like that. How is that not privilege, Absolutely insanity.
Because of your donation and Red Ice membership, we're able to produce live streams such as this one. Help support independent, pro-European media. We're fighting for a prosperous future for European people across the globe. Please go to paypal.me/redice and make a contribution. We appreciate all your support.